Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, get in, loser. We're doing something for the first time since 2008.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. On today's episode, we'll dive into another thought from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire, touching on what sounds like they could be the star or stars of fall camp so far, at least on the offensive side of things. And I also have a question I want to pose to you regarding this specific group. We're talking ball carriers. We just lost a program's all-time leading rusher, so there's no way that rushing production could actually get better immediately following that, right? I'll get to that coming up in just a moment, and that collection of running backs looking to fill the shoes of Taj Brooks. But wanted to kick off the show today, Chris, with you in an Associated Press frame of mind. AP Top 25 now out for us to digest, and for the first time since 2008, you are represented in a preseason AP ranking, and I believe first time since then concurrently in a coaches and AP preseason set of top 25 teams you are mentioned. So as we roll through a year where potentially you're saying, this is the first time you've done this in a long time, those give you good vibes. I like to hear that, even though it does suggest there have been some dark days in between. It doesn't matter. We're seeing the light again, folks. Red Raiders coming in at number 23, so similar standing to within the coaches' top 25, Chris. And I got to tell you, as I said going into the coaches one, a little surprised, at least from my own perspective, to see them there. I thought you'd be an also receiving votes kind of team, but you do make it in that top 25 by a couple of spots. And better to be in than out. We know somebody's going to have to make up some extra ground from outside the top 25 just because of preseason rankings. And I guess I'm glad that's not us, at least, if we're lucky enough to be in that spot.
Yeah, you and I are a couple of cynics because I also was like thinking that you may not be included in this one. But it is nice to be included. It guarantees you nothing. The way your schedule sets up, you should be able to be in a position to where you really help your number out, and it may not bump up a ton, but you go to Utah, and I think that it just kind of ramps up slowly to where I think you'll be able to stay in this deal. And like what's interesting too is, like, let's see, Kansas State at 17 and Iowa State at 22. One of those teams could be completely out by the time September 1st rolls around, just because somebody's taken an L, especially so if that's a 17 or a 21-point win by one or the other, and they win it in commanding fashion. Anyway, it'll get going here pretty quick. But, yeah, I mean, this is Joey was really big on the bowl game last year, and that was part of it. Why I was like, we really need to win this bowl game because it will set us up in these conversations for next year. And it turns out, I think that some of the buzz and the portal and this and that kind of overcame losing a bowl game. So it's just, being ranked in both of them. I don't guess I was necessarily expecting that, but here we are. And it's also not lost on me that, because I was trying to see who else was included, and no Utah, no Baylor, no BYU, but that's basically in the way the votes rolled out, that they're 26, 27, and 28. So they're like, they are the three that just missed. So you've got 7 teams amongst the top 28 teams, which speaks to how deep that everybody else thinks the league will be. And it just speaks to the margins being razor thin, that there's one team that's going to win this league, and there's 7 teams among the top. That's a 25% entry into the top 28 with the Big 12 being repped. So anyway, here we go. Yeah.
I was trying to find the other name because I know there was a second person that asked about this, but Justin was asking as well. about preseason hype specifically, and maybe how it compares to something we just mentioned there, and that was the build-up to 2008. Sort of feels like you're just more so kind of dipping your toe into this offseason hype build-up compared to then, because you were, I think, preseason number 12 going into that year?
Yeah, there was legitimate. I think that one was different just because you had a monster year in 07. So much of what you had was back. You had a big-time QB. You had the Blitnikoff Award or award winner. You had a lot of continuity with your team. And this is a bit different because people are kind of like that. This is why these polls are flawed, because you're rolling the dice on a lot of these teams. You just are. You're projecting out. You're guessing. And then what else factors in is your schedule. That will play out. Now, I think that it benefits Texas Tech to start out ranked because they can kind of maintain that and then maybe increase it a bit. Whereas I think it would have maybe been difficult to become ranked if you weren't, based on who you're playing early on.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And it didn't take any time for the Matador Mob to already start firing off texts. What's our number when we leave Salt Lake City undefeated? Forcing me to think about these things just so I can text you back something.
And you'll get some juice from that win. I really believe that. If you were to get it, but that.
If they're unblemished by then going into it and you're able to actually be successful in that situation, I think you're talking on I don't even want to say it. That's for a Matador Mob text. We don't speak it just yet. Oh, what the hell? Speak it into existence. Top 15, baby.
You'd be headed into a bye week too. You're headed into a bye week at that point as well before you go to Houston. I had somebody else offer this up to me. They texted me and said, okay, you're fourth in the Big 12 in this poll because let's see, Arizona State at 11, Kansas State 17, Iowa State 22. And then you are at 23. So there's 4 Big 12 teams listed. You're the fourth one. If you finish that way, regardless of what the numbers are, but if you finish as the fourth best Big 12 team in whatever poll it is, or the standings, would you consider the experiment of the portal class and all that a failure?
No.
Or a success? No. And I think that you make a great point because we're solely basing this on, do you get to Arlington and all those things, right? But listen to what we are saying in that this is the first time in the preseason in 17 years. This is the last time you've been in this poll since in 7 years. It was the 18. There's a lot of stretches here where you haven't. So we just have to be careful, myself included, Arlington or bust. But that's the way that the folks over on campus are going to feel about it. But there can be some positive developments here, even if you don't push through, because I think you feel like you're just starting to be aggressive and make some things happen with talent acquisition and all those things. But it's just an interesting way to look at it, I guess, because some would say, hey, man, if you're fourth in any capacity, you failed. And Joey may be the head of the list there.
Well, and he probably should be, and I get that. Those who are involved have got to have the highest expectations. But I also bristle at the word experiment. I don't find this to be an experiment.
True. Yeah.
Buying the best players in the country is how this world has operated for its entire existence. Just talking college football, college sports, or anything else, I guess you get what you pay for. The Longhorns, Lambo's on the field. Welcome to Austin. Here's a Ferrari. Why? It's not coincidence or because they got a surplus of Ferraris. They just got to set out everywhere all across town. It's because money buys the best things. And so if you got that, you're trying to buy the best thing. Experiment. So I just say that to suggest that if you don't get to where you want to be exactly, you don't say, well, buying the best football players sure didn't work. Let's try something. Hell no, you just do it again. Yeah. There's something that didn't work, I guess, but I don't think it's going to be trying to go out and entice the best football players to play for you. It might be like decisions in game. It might be a coach. It might be chemistry. It might be camaraderie. It might be all things pulling
an injury.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. But the experiment part of it, and that's why I bristle also when people talk about you're all in this year or bust. Well, yeah, I guess we're all in, but there's no bust coming, I don't think, unless somebody's just totally going to turn this thing upside down and say no more dollars whatsoever. I hope that makes sense. I just don't feel like there's not really an unknown when it comes to, hey, let's go try to get the best defensive end in the country or something. Like, yeah, do that again and again and again and again. We're just sort of, I guess, joining the category of maybe having the resource to attract that kind of attention possibly. And I hope it's sustainable, but this isn't just a 12-month trial window where you think either it works and we keep doing it or it doesn't and we stop. I think you're going to continue to do this. Of course, some great results will spur on even more investment, I'm sure. But yeah, the experiment part of it, or just the all in or bust part of this, I'm not really subscribing to, I guess, this year as a fan.
Fair.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the Felix Ojo and the Damian Guyton additions suggest to you that, no, this isn't just like a one-time scenario where like, okay, I'm rolling the dice and then you're going to take the dice away and we don't get to play dice anymore. No, you're going to keep rolling them and keep swinging away at this deal. And sometimes you may roll a 7, sometimes you may roll a snake eyes, and sometimes you may hit that point. And then we all win. Everybody around the table high-fiving, unless you put on the don't pass line, which I always thought those people were like, there's a special place for those kinds of folks, and I don't want to be at a craps table with those folks. That's
right. What kind of man are you? What are you doing?
Right. Betting against the group. Screw you, man.
Yeah, 1,000%. And you've got the beating coming to you possibly on the other side of a bad roll. Okay, that's a different experience. I'm not bitter or anything over some firsthand experience with a friend in Vegas once upon a time. Thinking of a specific name. Anyway, I'm getting distracted now. Chris, let's keep this thing going and let's get back to Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire, because I want to get into something similar we discussed, I guess, just a couple of weeks ago when we were taking a listen to some thoughts from offensive coordinator Mac Leftwich. This was coming into camp, and now that some things have happened, it almost seems like you might be hearing the head coach describe the group or the cast that has been the stars offensively. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments. We all know there's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. With Gametime Picks, curation makes it even easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the one and only lowest price guarantee, which means you get the lowest price, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Plus, peace of mind with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. You might be hearing the head coach describe the group or the cast that has been the stars offensively of camp so far. Take a listen to Joey McGuire talking about his collection of running backs.
Man, we got running backs. If you said, like, what is the biggest highlight on the offense side of the ball, is us being able to run the football. We have got 3 really good running backs that, Jacoby Williams ended red zone lockout with a touchdown. Cam Dickey had some huge runs, really physical. He just runs so angry. And then Joyner had some big runs. I think he also had a touchdown. So, like, the running back room really showed out. And then Adam Hill, got a bunch of the 3s, and I thought he did well. We're going to expect a lot out of him on special teams. So that running back room, really, really talented. Jacoby, we motioned him out a lot to let him play some slot and stuff. So, I think you've got a guy like that. They all 3 catch the ball well. They're physical, and Adam. So all 4 catch the ball well. They're physical in the Blitz pickup, that's the thing we just got to keep getting better at. We lost the best guy in college whenever it comes to blitz pickup. Whenever I look at him, I see a real shifty home run hitter in Jacoby. I see a guy, Q, great vision. He's really like effortlessly, it's almost like waves, like how he moves. And then Cam Dickey just runs angry, like he's just a ball of fury. I mean, if you saw Cam, whenever you ever see him, he doesn't have a shirt on, or if he does have a tight shirt on, I mean, like he is just a ball of muscle of 218 pounds. Some guys say he's like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. It's almost like he's got a shell on his back because he's just so rocked up. A little bit like me, but I mean, Jacobs could talk about it, man. The running backs are really, that's a deep room, and they play off each other and they compete. Like they're really competitive. They want to be the first ones in, but they don't get all upset.
That Joey McGuire can really paint a picture, can he? He scratched me where I itch with all of that.
Yeah, I love the the turtle reference and all that. Like with Cam
I know exactly
Dickey.
what he's saying.
Yeah, there's like there was a running back that played for Boise State years ago that ended up playing for the Buccaneers, I think, named Doug Martin, and they used to call him the muscle hamster. So that's when he was describing Cam Dickey. That's what all I could think of was like muscle hamster, but it was turtle in this case. So this is a positive development, right? That you've got three guys. It has been a question for me just because we haven't seen these guys do it. It's pretty clear to me that they are doing it in camp, and I guess I'm digging in, and this was an episode we did recently. I still really question what it looks like in short yardage and in the red zone. Like, can you get it done because typically when you get in the red zone or inside the 10, teams run it. And that's when the quarterback run game comes into play, and you've got to be able to get those. And then there's the short yardage stuff. And that's the part where, like, in between the 20s, you may be as good, if not better, than you were last year. And I do think, the explosive runs is where you're really going to I think, eclipse greatly what you did last year. Like your 15-yard plus runs, your 20-yard plus runs, and hopefully there's some of these that are 50 and 60 yarders. That should be the major difference from the positive standpoint. But again, short yardage, you picking up the blitz, because Taj was exceptional at these things. But I like what I'm hearing, and I'll take you back to something that somebody told me back in the spring. And not every defensive player was practicing it. There was a lot of guys being held out and all these things. But the general consensus was they can't tackle Jacoby Williams. They just can't do it. And it was more of a compliment to Jacoby. It's like, dude, he's just got some serious juice. He's bouncing off of people and this and that. And so I think he's done nothing to shy away from that. But I also don't think he's going to be your starting running back. I think Quentin Joyner is going to be that guy just because Jacoby is more of a smaller option. And I think you want to use him in the slot, like you heard Joey say. And so, but the explosiveness is clearly there. All these guys are fast. That's the rub. It's like, okay, that's great. And you may take some to the house, but there's going to be times when you need that dirty 3 yards, and it's first and goal at the 3 and you hammer it and okay, like this isn't working, but maybe this is where the offensive line being better comes into play too.
Yeah. Yeah. And in those situations or a pass blocking situation, like you just heard from Coach McGuire describing Taj Brooks as the best in the nation, that or when you need the dirty 3, you felt like you were in really good hands, obviously, with number 28 there, and he leaves as the program's all-time leading rusher, which means you've got big shoes to fill, Chris. But before we get out of here, I just wanted to put something to you. What if I told you I'm expecting what if I told you I'm expecting an even bigger year production-wise than you've had in the Taj Brooks era, or maybe even going back to some years prior as you're just looking back over the course of this decade where you began more so among running backs or ball carriers as a team that was hovering in a 1,200, 13, 1,500 kind of range. I think if you're really being productive, and then you get more so into the Taj and SaRodorick Thompson, or at that time, I guess SaRodorick Thompson and Taj era, where it was upped a little. And then more recently, in truly the Taj Brooks era, you've been closer to 2,000 yards. I don't think you've topped it. Maybe you have by just a few yards among specifically ball carriers, but you've been around the 1,900 mark. But I'm still asking myself, and sort of even buying into this, that with these guys, and of course, the group you mentioned up front that we think has been dramatically improved, certainly hoping that's the case. I think maybe the production gets bigger actually on the other side of the all-time leading rusher going out the door, and that's clearly no slight to him, but a much different situation, I think, just from 24 to 25. And maybe I'll go back to the word hope and say a much different situation, I hope, where you could even be more productive in the backfield.
Yeah, you were. I asked you this before the show because you told me we were going to talk about this. And I'm like, do you know where you ranked nationally last year? And you were like, somewhere in the middle.
Very middling is what it felt like.
61st in the country at 166 a game. Averaged as a team 4.5 yards a carry. Now, this is virtually no QB run game. This is virtually no explosive runs. This was just grinding it out, right? So what does it look like now that you have multiple options that I think will get carries? Because last year it was like, yeah, okay, Cameron Valdez, he's going to play some, or maybe these two freshmen will play some, and you just did never really commit to that. Short of a few flashes between Dickey and Williams, but I think you are committed to these three. And what does that look like? Because I'm looking this up to be sure, but do you know, like you were shockingly, do you know how many runs you had over 40 yards as a team last year? 2.
I was going to say, is this a trick question? As in,
do you know how many runs you had of 50 yards or more last year? 1. And see, and I think those stats could be substantially higher, like double or triple. Okay, so go from 2 to 6 or 1 to 3. And that's not, and maybe several more than that. And then that's where maybe your average or your yards per carry average, some of that, really, really rises. It's just, though, it's situational that I guess I'm asking about.
Yeah.
It's like I don't need the yards per carry average. I don't need to be 10th in the country in rushing. At some point, I need to be really good around the goal line, and I need to be really good in, we want to start going for it on 4th down, and like ask your coach to roll the dice. Well, you better be able to convert, in between the tackles and all that. Because I think Barron is intentionally going to run more this year. I think he's lost some weight. I think he's faster. He's talked about this. And I think he will be involved in more of the run game, but I don't think you're necessarily putting him in the run game intentionally, and that's just not who he is. That's not really necessarily who Will Hammond is either. So this is going to be your scheme and your running backs that are largely going to be involved here.
Yeah, and I'm, again, just because I love the terminology, the dirty three that you've already referenced. We talked about a ball of muscle already. Ball of anger. I can't even remember. Ball of knives. Whatever else he threw in there for Cameron Dickey or some of these other guys.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
The Teenage Mutant. Yeah, and I was thinking, which personality would I want him to have? Probably more Raphael, because he was sort of a jerk. He could get nasty. Not the one I really want to have a beer with all the time, but he'd get a dirty 3, I feel like. So if you're Michelangelo, it's probably a little too much goofing off on 3rd down or near the goal line. I hope he's more of a Raphael. You can let me know if I'm going wrong or you see it a different way in the YouTube comments, or fire us a text if you are a Matador mobster. And I'm sure your Ninja Turtle knowledge is just as deep as mine, Chris. So I won't even quiz you on today's show.
Please, thank you. I appreciate you not quizzing me there. I'm aware of there was like a green one, a blue one, and a red one. Yes,
correct.
Okay, yeah. I've exhausted my knowledge on the subject.
Okay, so you covered 3 of the 4 because there was also an orange one.
Oh, okay. I was going to guess.
I told you I wasn't going to quiz you, so I'm sorry to bring that.
I was going to guess yellow. I know there's been, there was the cartoon and there's been movies made and the whole thing. Yes. Right. but yeah, I wasn't necessarily like I didn't have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle lunchbox going to school, if that's what you're asking.
You were already on a college campus during the heyday, I think, or at least at the end of high school, and women had entered your universe. There was no need for Ninja Turtles, mutant, teenager, otherwise.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I probably would have looked rather silly walking around the old UC, the University Center at Texas Tech, standing in line at Chick-fil-A with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle lunchbox. I might have got laughed out of there. There were several other reasons to like take my man card away and all that stuff, but I didn't need to give anybody any extras.
A little bonus TMNT talk for you at the end of the program. That's why you stay till the end, folks. Or maybe some of you are thinking, this is why I typically leave earlier. Chris, thank you for the time.
We do need to give nicknames to all three of these guys. I wish I could come up with a really crafty nickname for Jacoby, because keep in mind, man, this is the one in high school. Don't you remember? We've talked about this. Didn't he do the between the legs dunk? I mean, he's not the biggest guy at all, but like, man, he is. He's got some serious juice and quick twitch in that body of his, and there's not a tougher guy in that building than Jacoby Williams. And try to tell him he's not the toughest guy, and you'll pull back a nub.
Maybe you just repurpose the muscle hamster. I mean, it's not being used anymore.
It's not. It's been
he
retired.
May bristle at hamster, so I don't want to be the one to offer that to him in person, at least. But maybe you toss it to him, Chris, and tell us how it went.
Yeah, you got it. I may let somebody else do that for me.
Yeah. All right, man. Appreciate you as always, and thank you everybody for being out there. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the Everydayers for always riding along, and of course, shout out to the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text, and it's straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for the time, and as always, we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.